Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Inclusion and Beyond, a unified talk show. My name is Craig Tornquist, and we have an incredible guest tonight that I can't wait to visit with. She may be the most inclusive person I have ever met, and I met her thanks to my co-host who introduced me to her because he's known her for a long time. And my co-host, as you all know, is the man, the legend, Jason Glenn. Jason, how are you today?
Well, hello, Craig. I am fantastic. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing very well, and I know how much our guest tonight means to you, Jason. So I'm going to let you introduce her, and I'm going to sit back and just enjoy a wonderful conversation between two inclusive friends. Okay.
Thank you so much. Craig, when we were putting this project together, I knew that I wanted to have our guest tonight as a guest. I didn't know when, I didn't know how, but I knew that it had to happen. Kristin Schoonveld is a huge part of yours and my relationship because, everybody knows Craig and I now because they've seen our show, but they probably don't know Kristin and the role that she plays. Kristin is the Athlete Leadership University Coordinator for our program. But it was also hard for me to find a role that she hasn't played in Special Olympics. So, Kristin, good evening, my friend.
Hello.
It is so
nice
good to
be
have you
here.
with us.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, and we appreciate everything you do. So, Kristin, how did you get involved in Special Olympics?
Well, I think it was about 13 years ago that Kelly Schreiner, your friend and mine, she's an athlete with Washington Township. She needed a partner for her basketball team, and that it was probably getting close to time to turn in those rosters, and they didn't have enough partners, and so she asked me to be a partner, and I said sure, I would do it, and that's really how it started.
That's so fantastic. And 15 years later, here we are.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Kristin, through Special Olympics, you found so many amazing opportunities. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the roles that you play?
Yeah. Well, back when I became a basketball partner, I honestly had no idea that there were opportunities like this for me. I was the kid who was organizing sports competitions in my backyard growing up, and finding the class list, because they would send out I guess a class list of phone numbers. I remember it, and calling up friends and having them come over and play sports in my backyard. I loved playing sports growing up. I was never going to be some sort of sports player after high school. And so this opportunity to be a basketball partner kind of brought back quite a bit of nostalgia for me. And it was so fun. And I just wish I had found it sooner. But after that, once you start volunteering, you do get calls, especially if you're showing a certain amount of enthusiasm about what you're doing. So I did end up being a partner for track. And then I got snagged up for bocce, which is what I did for many, many years, as you know. So, but back then, our county coordinator was Grace Schoonveld, and she is Nick's mom. She's no longer with us.
Now, who is Nick?
And Nick is my stepson, my adopted son. I adopted him, but he's my stepson. And so and we'll get into that, I'm sure.
Yes, we will.
How that all
Absolutely.
came about. But she called me up and asked if I would be the person to go to the schools at back to school night and set up a table and present Washington Township Special Olympics to the schools. And I loved it. We don't do that anymore. It didn't really get as much traction as one would think it would, but yeah, so that's what I used to do. And then it just really evolved from there. I'm not a born leader, but I really want to help kind of person. And that seems to bode well in Special Olympics.
Absolutely. So you talked a little bit about Nick. How did that all come about?
Well, it was the same, so I was the basketball partner. And so it was probably 13 years ago, right around now, that I started in Special Olympics. And then the next sport was track. And I decided to do track. And so I was going to the practices. And then we were a few practices in before I realized that was Nick. But Nick and we go way back. I used to take care of Nick in the late 80s and early 90s. I was a teacher's aide in his classroom, and that turned into his parents asked if I would be his babysitter in the summers. And so that's how I first met Nick. And he was, 7, 8 years old. So it was a track practice, and I was like, Nick Schoonveld, is that you? And he didn't miss a beat. And we hadn't seen each other in about 20 years. And he said, Kristin Tuller, is that you? And so at the time, Nick's mom was sick during this time period. And so it was just a natural thing. It's, and very much prompted by Nick, but Nick and I started spending a lot of time together during that time. We just kind of picked up where we left off. And he was really the driving force in that relationship and us getting together so much during that time. So it was kind of like we just found each other right at the right time. So
that's so amazing. So Kristin, during the year 2020, people were scared. People didn't know what to do. People were isolated. But you came up with this amazing program within days. Can you tell us about what you developed?
Well, yes, it was a crazy time. And our Washington Township Special Olympics group is a pretty close-knit group who not only are we going to sports practices together, but we were socializing quite a bit in addition to that. But even the sports practices alone, those being gone, was a huge void for everybody. And
it was.
And just that not calling people isn't really what anybody's doing. People aren't really calling and texting all that much. And so it was, I guess scary is a good word. So anyway, Zoom started getting thrown around, and I didn't know anything. I didn't really know much about Zoom. honestly, I think the only time I had ever used Zoom was through ALU.
Mm-hmm.
With that, when it was the year that the capstone project, the students worked together to bring soccer to Indiana, and I believe that the tool that they used was Zoom. So that was all I
Nice.
knew about Zoom. So just comes right back around to Special Olympics. But I went over to I decided that I would give this a try. I didn't have much hope that people were going to be able to figure it out and be able to get on this call. And but I went around to many houses and sat like outside the window or outside the front glass door, explaining how to get on Zoom, because we're going to have this call and we're going to try this. And it was just to try it once, just to get on once. Who knew what it was going to turn into? But it was such a huge success the first time, and that we, I started making up, a Zoom schedule where we had a drawing class, we had a writing class, we had a book club, we had a game night, and
I think he even had Zumba.
We had yoga.
Oh, okay. Yoga, sorry.
But we would have dance parties, and we had a movie night.
And the birthday club.
Until Netflix put the kibosh on being able to, show a movie like that. That was really fun. But 3 of those things we still do every single week. And it's still as well attended as it was during the pandemic. And it's still, we have bingo every Friday night, and everybody still loves it. So, and book club. Yeah. And drawing club. Those are the 3 things we still have every week.
That's so wonderful.
Yeah.
And did they, so you play a very unique role because you're a coach. You are also a parent of an athlete. You are an athlete yourself. How do you do it all?
It helps that our Special Olympics practices are, typically on a certain night of the week. So there is a lot of work. This Special Olympics, if I'm being honest, the work involved that I love,
it's never ending.
it takes up more time than my current full-time job. And I wish I could just volunteer for Special Olympics, because I love the kind of work that I do for Special Olympics. So it is difficult to do it all, but that's just life, I think. Like sometimes when you're concentrating on one thing, something else kind of falls by the wayside. Honestly, it really helps me that I have a lot to do as far as caring for Nick. It keeps me on a good schedule. And it helps me to not procrastinate, which is something that I do have to be careful about, not doing that. So deadlines are really good for me.
Calendars are great things.
Yes. Yeah.
So you attended USA Games. I cannot remember the year. I want to say it was 3 years ago. In
2022.
Orlando. Yeah,
Yep.
in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, it was, I knew before we even went that it was going to be the experience of a lifetime. It really was. I mean, there were only two downsides to it, and that is that Nick couldn't be there with me, and
Mhm.
and that I was the very first of probably three-quarters of the delegation. I don't know. I might be exaggerating, that got COVID. But
Right.
all of my competition was over before I got COVID. So and it was my first time getting COVID. But I had to, because I was the first one and nobody else got COVID, one other person got COVID before the half the team did. Um, this other person and I had to drive home from Orlando instead of fly with the team. But
Oh no.
yeah, but that was okay because I don't really like to fly, so it actually kind of so. But USA Games, I mean, it was incredible. It really was. I was a bocce partner, so here we were playing, competing inside when it was so hot outside. I mean,
Mhm.
I felt bad because I was cold. I needed a sweater. Yeah, but we were in this very nice hotel, um, competing in bocce, and it really was just an experience of a lifetime for sure.
So something that's super unique about you that I love, of course, you were in People magazine. Can you tell us a little bit about how that happened?
Well, People magazine, that article came about because of a an Indianapolis Star article that was written by the wonderful Dana Benbow, sports
Mhm.
writer. Um, and so, which, the Indianapolis Star article was a, it was just such a good representation of the story that I would want to tell. And because it was all related to Special Olympics. And that was the whole reason. Kelly Schreiner, who I mentioned before, the one
Mhm.
who got me involved in Special Olympics. It was her father who just he knew he knows my story well, and he Dana has written some stories about him, and he just kept bugging Dana to interview me, and she did. She came and interviewed me and us, and so really it's the Indianapolis Star story that tied it all into Special Olympics because of everything, this the fact that um, kind of picking up where I left off earlier, I was caring for Nick. We had gotten back in each other's lives 20 years after, just going off and living our separate lives. And I was caring for Nick often, um, and Nick's mom was getting sicker and sicker, and she died. And
Mhm.
so I continued caring for Nick. Um, During that time period, Nick's dad and I fell in love, and um, 3 years later we got married, and 4 months after that I adopted Nick, and so that's half the story. But it all relates back to Special Olympics. But the other half of the story, in a nutshell, is that I too am adopted, And that same year, I was, I sent in my DNA and received some very surprising, incredible results. And that's the other part of the story that is way too long to tell the whole thing. But Dana told that part of the story too. And it was the title of the article that caught People magazine's eye, because they were looking for stories on love, and the title of the article was something about higher love, no higher love, or something like that. And People magazine thought, there was a firewall. They couldn't even read the article, and they still got in touch. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so.
And what do you do? Like, what do you do for fun?
Well, I'm a homebody. I like to, yes, I like to be at home. I just like to tuck it in and just be with Nick and Brian if I'm in my downtime. And so I make art. I love to do that. And I like to watch documentaries, especially sports documentaries.
There's some really good ones.
I know. There's amazing ones. So, and so that's what I do.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So, Kristin, you have played so many roles in Special Olympics. Is there one? Do you have a favorite?
Well, honestly, I would say that I love them all. I mean, when I'm being a unified partner, I think to myself, if somebody were to ask me what my favorite thing to do in Special Olympics is, I would say being a unified partner. When I'm being a coach, I say that to myself, that being a coach is my favorite thing. But probably because I do have a lot of roles, my favorite thing is, and the reason for, I have these roles, I don't need them. If somebody were to say, can I have that role now? I would be more than happy for them to have that role now. But I do have these roles because I've either, offered to help because I don't want it to go by the wayside if I don't help, or I've had the idea for the project or the role, and therefore I need to fill it. But if all of those roles were filled by somebody else, that would feel really good too. And then I would say to you, and every once in a while, this is how it is, but my favorite role is to go to one of Nick's games as a parent and just be sitting there cheering him on and taking in the whole thing, just
the whole experience, right?
As a parent, yeah.
As a spectator, how often does that get to happen?
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Nick that I'm watching. As a spectator is actually more accurate, Jason. I had that opportunity a little bit more this past year to just be a spectator, and I just love it. Love bringing my chair to a softball game and just sitting there watching it all, the whole production unfold.
Mm-hmm. So, Kristin, what is your dream for Special Olympics? Where do you see Special Olympics going in the future?
Special Olympics is very good at, they're the best at being cutting edge. And I think that Special Olympics has gone places that several years ago a lot of people would never have expected. So like 5 years ago, who would have expected certain things? Maybe even this podcast. I don't know. So
Right.
So I like to think that I'm such a forward thinker that I couldn't be surprised, but I honestly think I'll be surprised by whatever happens in 5 years. I would love to see personally some just new faces. I love all the current faces, but I would love to see some really new faces in athlete leadership. I can't wait to hear new stories and see what kind of roles athlete leaders are going to be taking in 5 years. I would love to see a huge upward swing in unified women's sports. That would be amazing.
We did an episode all about unified sports, and I would love that as well.
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark is leading the way.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah, right. So I think she's probably, inspiring unified partners in addition to athletes.
The athletes, right.
Kristin,
right.
May I ask a question? I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I've watched you with just real respect when you teach the course at Athlete Leadership University on art. Jason and I have taken the class, two different classes that you've taught, and you've such a gift for making every person in that room feel talented and special and unique. And what advice would you give to someone who's watching this that maybe would be interested in being a coach? Special Olympics Indiana right now is doing a big push for, we need coaches like you. And what advice would you give to a person who may be on the fence about becoming a coach or a volunteer in some capacity? What do you say to someone who's brand new to Special Olympics?
Yeah. Well, I had the opportunity actually to call a few of those people because, with this coaches campaign, they send, when somebody registers that they're interested, then they send that information to whatever delegation, whatever box they selected. So I did call a few people, and what I said to them is, it happened to be during volleyball season. So, we're practicing volleyball. And I think if I were you, the hardest part to get you to pull you in is going to be that you're nervous. Who likes the first day, and so why don't you, volleyball wasn't, for this one particular person, it wasn't even something they necessarily were interested in coaching. I said, please just come to practice and see how fast, you become part of the group, because that's the magic with this group of individuals, is that, and they've taught me to do it too. So it's easy for me to do it as well, but you will, if you come to practices and just come and offer some help, or even just, introduce yourself, you're going to feel a part of it. and then we've got you.
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna
We got the hook.
Yes, and it worked. I mean, it takes action on their part, but this particular person did do that, and they didn't miss a practice the rest of the season.
That's
and
great.
Yeah, they're ready to go.
And it really is, it's all about relationships. And in a world that's starving for that, Special Olympics is just the best people. And they're all in it for the right reason. And these friendships develop. And that's how, Jason sent me an email during COVID. I never met him before. And he saw a virtual thing and, hey, would you be interested in being my mentor? And I now just regard Jason as just a really good friend. I mean, I don't think of his
thank
mentor,
you. Back at you.
Well, we're just friends, and we talk regularly on the phone. We get together and we laugh.
Just not on Saturday mornings.
That's it. Yeah, I learned not to call Jason on Saturday mornings. He's usually at Temple. But it took me a little while to figure that out, but we laugh about that too. In fact, I was so proud of myself this Saturday. I didn't call Jason on Saturday morning because I learned eventually. Well, yeah. Jason, any final thoughts you want to share with Kristin? Kristin, I want to thank you for all that you've done for Special Olympics Indiana, what you've done for Jason, the job that you've done at ALU. But Jason, I'll give you the final word.
Kristin, thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you do. You are such an amazing person, and you continue to believe in me even when I give you reasons not to believe in me. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You're so welcome.
Very good.
Can we bring Nick on so we can say hello?
Is Nick there? Do you want to?
Yeah, I want to say hi.
Absolutely.
Can I go get him real quick?
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll wait. Sure.
He has blue lips just from eating a slushie at Disney on Ice today. Just
okay. Okay. I was like, did he become
he's not having oxygen problem.
Okay, I was like, did he become a Smurf? I thought maybe he became a Smurf.
I worked with the Smurfs at Kings Island.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. They were there, summer of 1985. I shared a dressing room with the Smurfs.
Do you know their song?
I've repressed the better part of that experience. That's the one, yeah.
I don't know if it actually has words or la 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 is the entire song.
Yeah. that was 40 years ago, coming up this summer. Oh, there he is.
Hi, Nick. Hey, buddy. How are you?
You're fine.
You look great.
Yes.
How'd you get those blue lips?
I know. Did you become a Smurf and forget to tell me?
Yeah.
He became a Smurf. Okay, we're going with that.
He went to Disney on Ice.
He went to Disney on Ice.
Yes.
Was
Nick,
that a good
I sent
show?
you a text.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Jason.
I sent Nick a text. He got his cell phone back, so I was so excited.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Got a new cell phone.
Yes, he did.
Well, Nick, we've been talking about you for the last half hour, my friend. It is good to see your face.
Yes. And we think of you often. Hope you're feeling good.
Olympics.
Yeah, to my Olympics.
Yep. Only your favorite thing in the whole world.
Yeah.
Very good.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Take care. You
have a good night.
Okay. Good night.
Well, as promised, I told you this was going to be a good one. So thank you, Kristin, and thank you, Nick, and thank you, Jason. Another awesome job, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Well, we look forward to seeing you all next time on Inclusion and Beyond. Until then, be nice to each other, okay? Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.